Hello everyone, this is Kenneth Brony from Tech and welcome back to the channel. So it's been over a month since I uploaded a video, and it's partially because of some of the things I do. So for instance, I'm a graduate student and I have some obligations with regards to academic work. So fortunately for me, I'm through with some of the things that I needed to do that took a lot of my time these days. So I'll be uploading as frequent as I used to. So this video is actually a throwback. So I started my channel somewhere in August 2020. So it's been a little over a year now. As you can see, August 2020. So it's been a little over a year now since I started. In fact, the first video that I posted, which I've actually taken off because looking at it now, it's kind of embarrassing. So I've redone the video and I'm going to upload it in this particular section. So in that light, the project that we are going to work on is how we can connect a single Django project to multiple database management systems. All right. So many a times we build an application and we connect it. By default, Django gives us the SQLite 3, but we can also use MySQL, which I think I've demonstrated in some videos. We can also use Postgres, but in all those examples, it was almost like a single database management system handling the whole application. In this particular example, we are going to see how we integrate multiple data management systems. And like I said, this is a throwback to one of the first videos I uploaded on YouTube and a remake of it in a better way for better understanding. All right, now let me also add, if you're a complete beginner and you don't know much about Django, I have a series over here I did a couple of months ago, and that's the Django inventory management system. It starts from part 1 and it ends at part 22, and it takes you pretty much from the very basic to an intermediate level. And definitely, if you are able to follow along, you definitely get yourself acquainted with web development and using Django as a whole. So for the purpose of this project, we are actually going to use, or we are going to follow through with the Django documentation. And trust me, everything you would ever think of is provided in the documentation. So what you would normally want to do is you just have to Google anything. So in this case, just Google Django multiple databases and you see a link. I'll leave this link in the description below and it's going to lead you up over here. So I'm going to open up VS Code and I'm going to open my terminal and I'm going to cd into my desktop and I'm going to create the Django project over here. So I'll do Django admin start project, and the name of the project is going to be multiple DBMS, which is database management systems. So I have this and the project has been created, so I have to navigate through my files, open folder, go to desktop, and I have this showing up over here. So I'll select this. All right, so and I'm quickly going to run through some few things over here. So once again, we are connecting multiple database management systems onto one single project. And here we have in settings.py, you can see that we have the database settings over here, and this is where all the magic is going to happen. So if I'm to go back into the documentation, we can see that we are going to use what we refer to as database routers. Okay, let me come back. We are going to use database routers, and this is an example that has been provided over here. So you can see that the default database has been set to null, okay, or an empty string over here as you have it, or an empty dictionary actually. So what we are going to do is, I'm actually going to change some few things over here. I'm actually going to bring the default up this way, and I'm going to add a trailing comma over here. Okay, so what you have is nothing different from what we have over here, except that they are using for the users database, they are using MySQL, and we want to maintain SQLite for the first database. And for this one, I'm going to call this auth db. So this is going to be auth db. Later we are going to understand why. But let's come down here and actually see when they actually spoke about the routers and how to use the routers. They give an example over here, and that's where they use the auth db. You can choose any name of your choice, but then I decided to go with auth db. And over here today, they are using MySQL for their database. Remember, with our auth db, we are using SQLite 3. That's the default database. But before we can set everything up, and let me just show you this. If I'm to open up the terminal and let's say run python manage.py, and I say make let me do migrate, we are definitely going to run into some problems over here, and it's pretty much straightforward. It says database is improperly configured. Please supply the engine value. Check settings documentation for more details. So clearly, by default, Django is only going to recognize the default settings it is or you are supposed to apply. But then we are changing some few things over here, and we need to inform Django. But before we do so, there's something we need to look out for over here. So this is going to be something we are going to work with. That's the database routers. And as you can see, we need to include this in our settings.py. So finally, in the settings file, we need to add this. Okay, so let's just copy this. I'll do a Control-C, and inside settings.py, maybe at the very end over here, I'll paste this over here. All right, we are going to change some few things in here, and before we do so, let's create a folder. So I'm going to call this folder routers. Routers. And if you are not seeing this icon over here, don't worry, I'm using an extension that's pretty much changing a lot of things I do over here, so don't worry. So inside routers, I'm going to create in a file, and I'm going to call this db_routers.py. It's supposed to be a Python file. All right, so we are going to come in here and we are going to see what we put over here, but clearly we don't need this for now, so let's get rid of this. So there's a list, okay, and this is linking up to our database routers, and it says the path to the router. So as you can see, it says that we should substitute path dot to dot with the actual path to the module that we want to connect as a router. So clearly that's going to be this routers. Okay, so this is going to be routers dot, and it's going to be dot db_routers dot. Now we are going to leave this auth router as a default thing, and we are going to apply the settings over here. So what this basically means is the db_routers is actually pointing to this folder routers, and inside these folders, or inside this folder routers, it is accessing the db_routers.py module over here, and inside of it we need to have this auth router class, and that's what we are going to write over here. But the documentation actually handles everything we want for us. So let's just copy this auth router class, and let's just copy this. So I'll do a Control-C and a Control-V over here. Right, so let me just collapse this so that we see everything showing up over here. So clearly let me save this. So the comments over here pretty much says a lot over here. So under this class we have some methods over here, and the main thing we have over here is some of these comments are very good in terms of trying to tell us what's happening. So what you have over here is a router to control all the database operations on models in auth and content types application. So now the question is, where is the auth and the content types application? Now if I'm to go back into settings.py and pretty much come in here, we are going to see that by default we have these installed apps, and admin is one of them, auth is one of them, content types we have sessions, messages, and moving forward, if we install or if we create any new application, we need to come and register it over here. Good. So these are, or this is where the auth and the content type is actually coming from. Okay. Now, in order to simplify this and also make this very simple, we are also going to add the admin. So this is going to be a dictionary. So I've added admin over here, and I'm also going to add sections. So I'll do a Control-C and I'll put it over here. Good. So this is saying that this is a root app labels. Okay, so this is the name of the apps that we want this auth router to handle, and these are the methods within. So we want to read the data. Okay, so we are saying that if the model dot underscore meta dot app label in self dot router label, okay, self dot route app labels, if it is inside, then we want to return the auth db. Now the auth db is actually what we specified as an engine over here. This is the auth db. So basically what this method is actually trying to implement is, as far as reading of data is concerned, okay, if the label, and these are the content of the label, is inside, if there's some model which is inside of this label as specified over here, then we want to return or want to use the auth db table, which is in this case going to be our default SQLite 3 database. You are going to look or see how this will work. And there's also a method for writing. Okay, so we can read over here, we can write over here. We can also allow all relationships. Okay, so whether there's a foreign key, a one-to-one relationship, this is also how we are going to handle it. And we can also allow all migrations. So for the auth or for the main database, we want to leave one database that's actually going to handle everything a database is supposed to do. Then perhaps in other databases, depending on how we are building our application, we can actually have a database that's going to only permit users to read. Users cannot write data into the database. Okay, you can also have a database that's not going to allow relationships. So that's definitely going to be some kind of security measure depending on the kind of application that you would want to implement. So having said that, now we should open our terminal and run the migration. So I'm going to say python manage.py migrate, and we are still going to run into some problems over here, but we are going to sort ourselves out. Okay, so having done this, now python manage.py migrate. Now when we come back into the documentation, and this at the very top over here, it says because we are applying multiple database, okay, within our system, Django may get confused. So in running our migration, if we say python manage.py migrate, we need to specify the database that we want to migrate. And in this case, or the example shown over here is users. So you can see we have users over here and we have customers over here. That's basically what we have over here as the engine. We have users and we have customers over here. So in our case, you would realize that for now we only have auth db. So what I'm going to do over here is I'm going to do a dash database, and I'll do is equal to, and I'll type in auth underscore db. So I'll press enter, and now we have our migrations going through. All right, so we are good to go. Now let's create a super user so that we can have access to the back end. So I'm going to type in python manage.py and create super user. Now I'm going to type in admin, and just about now we have an issue, or we have an error. Okay, and it is repeating the old problem that we had. And a way to get around it is when we type python manage.py create super user, we need to also do a dash dash, and we are going to specify the database that we want to create this super user for. As far as that particular database is concerned, we want to do is equal to, and once again it's going to be auth-db. So now let's proceed. We can have admin, and we can have our email address, and I'm saying admin@gmail.com, and our password is going to be this. And now we can have access to the back end. So before we do that, let's start our server. So I'll do python manage.py run server. So our server has started, and let me do a control and click on the link over here. So let's quickly go back or into our back end, and let me type in the credentials I used in registering. All right, so clearly we have a user registered over here. Good. Now this user is actually saved in the MySQLite 3 database. Okay, the SQLite 3 database actually, and that's what we are using for this particular auth-db database engine. Now let me open this up and over here. So I'm going to use a database browser over here, and I'm going to open up this database. So I'll just go into the project, which is supposed to be multiple DB, and just select this, and here we have everything showing up over here. Now if I'm to go into browse data and select the user model, that's exactly what you have over here, admin, and there's an email address. All right, now let me register a new user, and that's very simple to do. I'll just click over here, and I'll type in my name over here, Kenneth, and I'll type in a password. All right, so I'll save this, and Kenneth has been saved. Okay, you have Kenneth over here. We don't have anything for email, we just ignored it. Okay, now if I'm to come here and come and refresh, you can see that we have Kenneth showing up over here. So everything we save as far as the users are concerned are going to be saved inside of the SQLite 3 database. Now let's move on to see how we can add additional database onto our system, and let's come down here, and it's very straightforward. So over here, all that we need to do is to probably just copy one of these as you see it over here. So I'll do a Control-C and come inside here, inside our databases. Let me just close this, and let me just paste this over here. All right, so bear in mind we need to add a trailing comma at the end of every database in order to make it work. All right, so the first thing we need to do is to give it a name, and for this one I'm going to say school, school_db, and the name of the database is going to be school. Okay, this is going to be the name of the database for which we are going to create. Now in the case of my SQLite, or in the case of my SQL database, my username is root, or my user is root, and my password is I can't show my password over here for obvious reasons, but then I have a video, I'll leave the link in the description below, and I'll tag it just at the top over here, and that's actually explains how you can use environment variable to save some of these things. So I have my password saved in an environment variable. So in order to access that, I'm going to come in here and run an import. So I'm going to say import OS, so that I can use a OS module to have access to my environment variable password. So I'm going to say os.environ.get, and what do I want to get? I want to get db_password. All right, so you don't see my password in plain text, and I'm also going to let me come back do a comma over here, and I'm going to add in a port. So for the port, it's going to be an integer, and I think it's going to be 3305. Yes, yeah, 3305. Now let me open MySQL in Workbench. Alright, so it's 3305 for the port, and let me type in my password over here. Alright, so this is the old database I used for the example, and now I'm going to create in a new one. So I'll click on this, and I'm using the database school. The name of the database is school. So I'll click on apply and click on apply over here. So the school database has been created for me right over here. So I'll close these ones, and I can now concentrate on school. Alright, so let's see what happens next. So now that we have this database and we have our credentials and everything looking good over here, the next thing we need to do is to come into our database routers over here, and let me just copy this. Now do a Control-C. So now there's a list, so we can actually do this, and I'm going to put out a comma over here, and I'm going to paste this right over here. So this is going to be something. I'm going to change the name, and I'm going to call this school router. So this school router is actually going to point to the school router, okay, or the school database we just created. And all that I need to do now is to go into the DB routers and go and create a class of school routers. But in order to simplify things, let me just copy this over here. So I'll do a Control-C, and I'll paste this over here and change the name over here to school router. Now one thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to get rid of these comments over here. Alright, so everything looks good as we have it over here. So we have the school router showing up over here. So now look at this. We have the root app labels. Okay, we haven't created the app yet. We are going to create the app. Now let's go into our terminal, and over here let's create a new app. So I'll do python manage.py, and I'll do start app, and let me call this app school. Alright, so we have school showing up over here, and let's go into our settings.py once again and go and register school inside our installed apps. So over here I'm going to say school.apps.school config. Alright, now this is the proper way of doing it. You can just type in school over here, but then if you do it this way, you save yourself a lot of future issues. Alright, so we have our app registered over here. So now if we are to come back over here, it says that what the root app labels, and the app label over here is school, and we don't need anything for auth, content types, admin, and session. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear this, and I'm going to type in school over here. Alright, so this is going to be school. Now for this database, we want to do some reading over here, and we don't want to return this. We want to return the school underscore DB. Okay, remember that's what we specified for the database engine over here. Good, and we'll change this as well, and I think finally there's the last one over here. Alright, now for the purpose of this demonstration, we are not going to use any relationship in the school database. So for allow relationship method, we are actually going to get rid of it. So let me just clear this. All right, now I'll save, and let's apply the migrations and see how this is going to work out. So first of all, I'm going to type in python manage.py, and I'll say make migrations. For make migrations, I need not to specify any module. All right, and yeah, clearly we haven't specified any database in here. So let's quickly come here and say we want a database of class, and we are saying school, and we have models.model, and I'm going to have name, and we are going to say models.char field, and I'm going to specify a max length of 100, and let's have address is equal to models.char field once again, and max length, and for address I'm going to say 200, and let me just have a strange representation over here. So double underscore str double underscore, and I'll pass in self, and I'll return self.name over here. All right, what I need to do obviously is to come into admin.py and register the model so that you can have access to it at the back end. So I'll say from the current models I want to import school. Then what I can do over here is I can say admin.site.register, and I want to register school. All right, so now we can make those migrations over here. Good. So now you can see that the system is now ready to accept the school migration. So now let's do python manage.py, and for the migrate we are going to do -- database is equal to, and this time around we want to do the school db. All right, so school db will now be migrated. All right, so we are good to go. So now let's go back into our backend and see how things are beginning to look over here. So let's refresh, and we have schools over here. So when I click on this, I can now come in here and type in, let's say, University of Ghana as a school, and this is going to be the address, University of Ghana, Legon. And when I save this, you can see that this has been saved. Okay, if I should come here and go into my school database, okay, and let me open this up and go into my tables, and inside my tables, let me open this up. Okay, now I have the school database showing up over here. Now if I'm to click on this and say I want to select the first 1,000 rows, now you can see that we have this data entry inside of this database. And if I'm to come in here and try and check, we don't see anything of school database showing up over here, because we applied the migration to a particular database engine, which is the MySQL. All right, so now that we have this running, let's work on adding another database, and that's going to be the Postgres database. So once again, let's go into our settings.py. Let me shrink this up a little bit, and let me just copy this. So I'll do a Control-C over here, and I'll paste this over here, and let's change this to, let's call this club.db, and the database name we are going to call club, and the engine over here is going to be Postgresql for Postgres. So now for Postgres, the user is Postgres. Those are my settings, and I'm using the same password over here again, so I don't need to change this. And I'm going to change the port to 5432. All right, so let me open up Postgres, and have it with pgadmin. I'm using quite an old one. I think the newer ones have a better interface. Alright, so I'm going to open this up and I'll type in my password over here. And inside of this, there's an example I used earlier on. So let's create in a new database. And this database, the name is going to be club. So after clicking on OK, we have club showing up over here. Alright, so now let's go inside here and let me just collapse these ones. They are getting too many. And let's create a new application. So let's do Python manage.py start app. The name of the app is club. Alright, so we have club over here. Now let's come in here and register club inside our installed apps. So I'm just going to duplicate this. So I'll do a Shift Alt and a down arrow key to duplicate this. And I'll just select school over here. I'll do a Control D to select the next school and I'll just type in club. Alright, so I'll change this to a capital C. So I have this setup done for me. Now the next thing I need to do is to come inside of our database routers over here. So once again, let me just copy one of these and I'll do a comma and I'll paste this over here. And this is going to point to a class of club routers which we are going to create very soon. So inside our db routers.py, all that I need is to copy this. I'll do a Control C. Now paste it over here and I'll change this up to club routers, and the name of the app, like we just did, is going to be club, and the DB we specified is also going to be club DB. But then we are yet going to do that. Let me see the database. Yes, we have club DB over here. All right, so we can also come in here and do club DB, and finally we can do club DB over here. All right, so this is going to allow migrations, and remember this is very important because we definitely need to allow migrations for it to work. Okay, and this right is obviously important because we want to add in data. All right, so this is going to be it, and let's quickly come back to school. I mean the model over here, and just copy everything over here. So I'll just do Control C and come into club models.py, and let's just paste this over here, and let me change this to club. All right, so I have club over here. Let's go into admin.py and register it over here. So I'm going to say from the current models, I want to import, and I want to import club, and I'm going to say admin.sites.register, and I want to register club over here. So now let's run migration, make migrations over here. All right, so now club is ready to migrate. So now let's go to migrate, and instead of doing school_db, we are now going to do club_db. So I'll press enter, and now we have this migration over here. Good. So now let's go back into the back end. Let's refresh. Now you have club showing up over here. Let's click on club and add in some data. So I am an Arsenal fan, so let me put an Arsenal, and let me say London. So when I save this, we have us now saved in the class model, and the class model is linking up to Postgres. And let's just have a confirmation over here. So let me just come and refresh, and inside clubs, let's go to schemas and public, and we have tables, and we have the club over here. So when I come in here and say I want to view the first 100 rows, now you see we have Arsenal London showing up over here. If I'm to come into MySQL, there's no way, and if I should refresh, okay, a number of times, I'm not going to see club database or the club tables showing up over here. Okay, it's not happening because I haven't applied those migrations over here, and we are connecting to different database management systems. And in that same vein, if I'm to come in here and try and refresh as many times as I want, there's no way I'm going to see the database. So it's like we are separating data and at the same time integrating it in a Django application. So this is going to be the first part of this video. In the second part of the video, I'm going to further demonstrate how we can apply database queries and how we can add data from the front end. Now, if you find this tutorial very interesting, there are a couple of ways you can help me grow my channel. Kindly subscribe to Django Tech, and don't forget to hit on the notification button so that anytime I release a video, you'll be duly notified. Also, share this video with friends and family who find this content very useful. At Django Tech, we say learn programming. You can do it. And also, don't forget to ask any question if you really do have one. Thank you very much, and bye-bye.